Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rouse IAS Study Circle. Now we are also available on Telegram, so join our Telegram channel by clicking on the link that is available in the description below to get the latest updates from Rouse IAS Study Circle. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an analysis of the Hindu newspaper from UPSC perspective. Today we will discuss the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 26th March 2021. And the articles that we are going to discuss are displayed on your screen. So let us start the discussion. Now this article on page number 8 is related to India-Bangladesh relationship. And you might all know that India and Bangladesh are celebrating 50 years of diplomatic relationship. Now Bangladesh is one of the important neighboring countries of India. And that is why the relations between India and Bangladesh are important for us from General Studies paper 2 point of view in the topic international relations under the subtopic bilateral relations. So in this discussion, we will look at the various aspects of India-Bangladesh relationships which are important for us from both preliminary as well as the mains examination perspective. So in this discussion, we will be briefly looking at the historical ties between India and Bangladesh and what are the key areas of cooperation and what are some of the unresolved issues between India and Bangladesh. And finally, we will look at the India-Bangladesh relationship in the larger context of presence of China in the South Asia. Now we all know that Bangladesh was earlier a part of Pakistan and was known as East Pakistan. However, it got independence from Pakistan in the 1971 Liberation War in which India played a key role. Now if you want to learn about the Bangladesh War of 1971 and how Bangladesh got its liberation and how India played a key role, you should go through the NCERT of class 12th Politics in India since independence, and it is the NCERT of political science subject. And in this particular chapter, the historical development of India's external relations have been discussed beautifully. Do go through this NCERT and particularly this chapter, and this will help you in understanding the background of the India's foreign policy. So you can see that it briefly discusses wars and peace with Pakistan. Also, it has discussed about the Bangladesh War of 1971. And finally, what were the key outcomes of the 1971 war? So coming back to our discussion, after Bangladesh got its independence, India was the first country to recognize Bangladesh as a separate and independent state. And also India established diplomatic relations with the country immediately after its independence in December 1971. So India was amongst the first country to recognize Bangladesh as well as establish diplomatic relations with Bangladesh. And that is why it is said that the relationship between India and Bangladesh is anchored in its history, culture, language, and shared values of secularism and democracy. So moving further, let us look at one of the important aspects in India-Bangladesh relationship, and that is the security and border management between the two countries. Now, as far as the border management between the two countries is concerned, you should know that India and Bangladesh share 4,000 kilometers of border, which is the longest land boundary that India shares with any of its neighbor. So this is a very surprising fact that India does not have the largest border with China, but it is the Bangladesh with which India shares the largest neighboring border. Now, border with Bangladesh was a very complicated one, and it was also called as a chessboard-like border, especially in these areas along the state of West Bengal. So in this you can see there were small strips or enclaves which were both occupied by India and Bangladesh. And that was a long pending boundary issue between India and Bangladesh. However, it was solved in the year 2015 when this India-Bangladesh land boundary agreement came into existence. And it was at this point that India and Bangladesh exchanged the enclaves with each other. So this long pending dispute of the enclaves between India and Bangladesh was settled by the India-Bangladesh land boundary agreement. Then there was another issue which got resolved, and that was related to maritime dispute. And this was resolved by the United Nations Tribunal Award. Now, regarding these recent agreements, it is said that India was at considerable disadvantage. And in this land border dispute, India lost around 10,000 acres of the land. And further, as far as the maritime dispute is concerned, according to the UN Tribunal Award, Bangladesh was provided with 20,000 square kilometer of the 25,000 sea area of Bay of Bengal. Now, although India could have chosen not to abide by the verdict of the UN tribunal, however, India chose to ignore the disadvantages in the interest of building a friendly and sustainable relationship with Bangladesh. So, India overlooked such narrow considerations in the view of improving relations with Bangladesh. And Bangladesh has been one of the important countries for improving the security in the northeastern states, and it has cooperated well with India. So, Bangladesh has cooperated with India in sorting out the security issues in the northeastern states of India. And in this line, it has handed over various leaders related to extremist organizations and has also shut down their training camps. Some of the leaders were Ranjan Daimari, who was the founder of the National Democratic Front of Bodoland. And then second important leader that was handed over by Bangladesh to India was Anup Chetia of the United Liberation Foundation of Assam, or the ULFA organization. So that is why Bangladesh becomes a very important partner for India, especially in the eastern part, for it the security of northeastern states of India and the extremism that northeastern states face. This brings us to the next important aspect regarding India-Bangladesh relationship, and that is the trade partnership. So some of the important facts include Bangladesh is India's largest trading partner in South Asia. And between 2009-10 to 2015 and 16, the trade deficit grew in favor of India and it was about 164%. That is, India was at surplus in terms of trade with Bangladesh. And further, the FDI from India to Bangladesh accounts for about $3.11 billion. This shows that the trading partnership is booming between India and Bangladesh. Further, India has extended lines of credit to Bangladesh in the last 7 years to about $8 billion. And this has made Bangladesh the largest recipient of the line of credit funds from India till date. Further, duty-free and quota-free access is being given to Bangladeshi exports to India under the SAFTA, or the South Asian Free Trade Agreement, since 2011. And finally, both the countries are working on the prospect of a bilateral comprehensive economic partnership agreement. So these are key facts regarding the trading partnership between India and Bangladesh. Now, one of the important aspects of relationship between India and Bangladesh is the connectivity. And if you look at the map of the northeastern states of India and the map of Bangladesh, you will find that through the land, these northeastern states are connected through a very narrow corridor, which is known as the Chicken Neck Corridor. And that is why it becomes important for India to have connectivity through Bangladesh to get easily into the northeastern states of India, as you can see in this map. And that is why both the countries have worked towards restoration of railway link between Haldibari and Chilhati in Bangladesh. Now, before 1947, we all know that Bangladesh was a part of British India. And during that time, various rail links existed. And that is why both the countries are now working on improving or restarting these old rail links. And that will help in improving the connectivity between the two countries, especially in the northeastern part of India. So you can see this Haldibari and Chilhati link on the map here. Further, there is direct bus service between Kolkata and Agartala. And both the countries have recently inaugurated 1.9-kilometer long bridge, which is known as the Metri Setu Bridge. And it connects Sabroom in Tripura with Ramgarh in Bangladesh. So you can see this on the map here, that is, it connects Sabroom in Tripura with Ramgarh in Bangladesh. So one of the important things from the preliminary examination point of view is that this Metri bridge has been constructed on the Feni river. And the importance or the strategic importance of this Metri Setu bridge is that India can access the northeastern states of India via the Bay of Bengal through the Chittagong port, and through this Chittagong port, India can enter into the state of Tripura. So that is why this Metri bridge is very crucial and is very important strategically, and especially in terms of improving the connectivity from the mainland India into the northeastern states. Further, as far as the connectivity is concerned, both these countries are working on operationalization of an agreement which is known as the BBIN. That is, it is an agreement between Bangladesh, Bhutan, India and Nepal, which are all lying in the eastern part of India. So there will be a motor vehicles agreement and it will lead to improved connectivity between these four countries. However, now Bhutan is reluctant in joining the BBIN motor vehicles agreement. And that is why the three other members of this motor vehicles agreement, that is Bangladesh, India, and Nepal, are working on starting the connectivity with a provision for Bhutan to join at a later date. Now, despite there being improvement in cooperation between India and Bangladesh on various fronts like security, border management, and connectivity, one of the impending issue between India and Bangladesh is that of Teesta River's water sharing agreement. Now, if you look at this map, Teesta is a river which starts from the state of Sikkim in India, and then it goes on to join the Jamuna River in Bangladesh. So, as Teesta River passes from India and enters into Bangladesh, it is a transboundary river, and that is why a water sharing agreement is required between India and Bangladesh. But this has not been finalized till date, and this has mainly been because of non-cooperation of West Bengal government. Because the Teesta River also passes through the state of West Bengal, that is, it passes through two states of India. Now, issue here is that water is a state subject in India, and for a bilateral agreement on the sharing of Teesta water, the support of West Bengal government is required. Now, earlier also, the West Bengal government refused for this finalization of Teesta River water dispute, and till date, the West Bengal government is not ready for a water sharing agreement. Now, issue here is that this river is very important for Bangladesh for irrigation, especially in the northern parts of Bangladesh. So, in order to meet its demand of irrigation, now Bangladesh has decided to build a reservoir on its own side. Now, key concern here is that as the river water agreement is not being finalized between India and Bangladesh, China is now entering into this space. And that is for building this reservoir, Bangladesh is now seeking the help of China, which is a cause of concern for India. So, after looking at the Teesta River water dispute, let us look at the regional and the global partnership where India and Bangladesh are working together. So, you should all know that Bangladesh supported India's election to the United Nations Security Council as a non permanent member. And both the countries have agreed to continue working towards achieving early reforms of the UN Security Council and also combating climate change and attainment of the sustainable development goals and protection of the rights of migrants. That is, both these countries are converging on various global issues. Further, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, both India and Bangladesh have shown interest in the important role that the regional organizations like SARC and BIMSTEC can play. And finally, India has invited Bangladesh to join the New Development Bank, which is a bank which has been floated by the BRICS countries. So these are the areas of regional and global partnership where both India and Bangladesh are cooperating. So this brings us to the most important aspect, that is what are the challenges between India-Bangladesh relationship. Now, as we have already learned that the trade relations between India and Bangladesh are booming. But the issue here is that India's Consolidated FDI Policy 2017 puts Bangladesh in the same category as that of Pakistan. And under this policy, a citizen of Bangladesh or Pakistan or an entity that is incorporated in Bangladesh or Pakistan can invest only under the government route. That is, the permission of government is required and they cannot invest in India through the FDI through the automatic route. So this basically discourages trade between India and Bangladesh when it is already booming. Further, India and Bangladesh had started the India-Bangladesh Coordinated Border Management Plan. However, despite that, 294 Bangladeshi nationals have been killed along the border since 2010. And the Teesta River water agreement is yet to be finalized because of various contentious issues and especially the consent of the state government of West Bengal. Further, India had recently passed the Citizenship Amendment Act and the National Register of Citizens. And this has created a negative impression in Bangladesh about India's intent. And we note that mostly these acts are targeting the Bangladeshi immigrants in India. Another crucial issue here is the increasing presence of China in the South Asia. And here Bangladesh is China's second largest arms export destination. Further, Chinese firms have been outbidding Indian counterparts in the infrastructure projects in Bangladesh. Now, besides China having an increasing presence in the Bangladesh, we already know that Nepal is increasingly becoming closer to China. And also Bhutan has withdrawn from the BBIN agreement or initiative. Further, we note that Sri Lanka and Maldives are playing a kind of balancing act between India and China. and Afghanistan is likely to be increasingly under the Taliban's sphere of influence as the US troops are withdrawing. So, this shows that in the South Asian region, India's hold is kind of not very strong, and that is why India should further nurture the relationship with Bangladesh and other neighboring countries in order to reduce the influence of China in the South Asian region. And for this, of course, we can always recommend that the use of regional forums like SAARC and BIMSTEC should be taken. So, overall, regarding the relationship between India and Bangladesh, it is said that the relationship is gaining positive momentum over the last decade. And as the Bangladesh celebrates its 50th year of independence, India continues to be one of its most important neighbor and strategic partners. So, in order to make the recent improvements between India and Bangladesh irreversible, both the countries need to continue working on the three C's, that is, cooperation, collaboration, and consolidation. So, in this discussion, we have seen the various aspects, the areas in which there has been increasing cooperation, and also some of the areas or some of the concerns between India and Bangladesh relations. And some of the points that we have discussed here can be important for us from the preliminary examination point of view, while overall analysis will be important for us from the mains examination perspective under India-Bangladesh relations. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this article on page number 15 reads that the Suez Canal has temporarily halted the navigation. Now, this Suez Canal is a very important canal which connects the Indian Ocean with the Mediterranean Sea, and from there on, the Mediterranean Sea is already connected to the Atlantic Ocean. That is, it reduces the distance between the Indian Ocean or the Arabian Sea and the Atlantic Ocean considerably, and that is why it is strategically very important. Accordingly, in this discussion, we will look at some of the important strategic maritime choke points which are crucial for global trade and are strategically very important. That is, if the operations get halted in any of these important strategic locations, they are likely to impact the global trade. So let us start with the Suez Canal first. And all these aspects that we discuss here are very important for us from the preliminary examination perspective. So if you look at the Suez Canal, the first thing that you need to learn is that it connects Red Sea with the Mediterranean Sea. So you can see in this map that Arabian Sea is connected to the Red Sea through the Gulf of Aden. And here also another important strategic choke point is located, and that is known as the Bab el Mandeb. So the Arabian Sea is connected through the Gulf of Aden via the strategic choke point of Bab el Mandeb with the Red Sea, and from there on the Red Sea is connected with the Mediterranean Sea by the help of Suez Canal. And that is why both these Bab el Mandeb and Suez Canal are two important strategic choke points which connect the Arabian Sea with the Mediterranean Sea. Now, earlier when the Suez Canal was not connected, a shipment from Arabian Gulf, if it was traveling to London, it might have taken around 24 days and it had to travel around 21,000 kilometers. But after the construction of Suez Canal, this distance has reduced considerably. That is, it has now just reduced to about 12,000 kilometers and it just takes 14 days via the Suez Canal. And that is why the Suez Canal is very important for trade between the Asian nations with the European ones, and especially when the trade has to pass from Indian Ocean into the Atlantic Ocean. So do remember the location of these two important choke points and which all seas are connected by this, and this can be a potential question in the preliminary examination. This brings us to the next important choke point, and that is also located in the Arabian Sea and which is known as the Strait of Hormuz. Now, if you look at the Strait of Hormuz, it connects the Arabian Sea with the Persian Gulf. That is, it connects the Gulf of Oman with the Persian Gulf. And this is strategically very important because most of the Gulf oil travels from the Strait of Hormuz in and out. And Iran is strategically located at this Strait of Hormuz, and that is why it has continuously been in news in the last decade because of the conflict between Iran and United States of America. Another thing to be noted here is that Oman is also located at the tip of this Strait of Hormuz. So this connects Gulf of Oman with Persian Gulf. And you can further get into the details, go through the map in detail, and they can be very important for you from the preliminary examination point of view. Then comes the Panama Canal, and it connects the Atlantic Ocean with the Pacific Ocean, and to be specific, it connects the Gulf of Panama with the Caribbean Sea. This is also very important because it reduces the distance considerably between the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. Moving on, in the Indian Ocean, another important strategic choke point is the Malacca Strait, as we all know, and it connects the Andaman Sea with that of the Pacific Ocean. And this is very important because most of the trade of China passes through the Malacca Strait. And that is why Andaman and Nicobar Islands are located strategically very close to the Malacca Strait. So do go through the map in detail and look at other important locations near the Strait of Malacca. Then besides these important strategic locations or strategic choke points, another important strategic choke point is the Strait of Bosphorus, and it is also known as the Turkish Strait because it lies in Turkey. And this is basically the strait which connects the Black Sea with the Mediterranean Sea or the Aegean Sea of the Mediterranean Sea. And the 2 points that connect these two seas are the Dardanelles waterway and the Bosphorus Strait. So this is also very important. And then there are Danish Straits which connect the Baltic Sea with the North Sea. So you can see here the Baltic Sea is connected with the North Sea in the Atlantic Ocean via the Danish Straits. Then there is also a Kiel Canal which is constructed in Germany. It also connects the Baltic Sea with the North Sea. So these are also important strategic choke points. So these are few important strategic choke points, and their location should be learned from the preliminary examination perspective. So go through the atlas and look at other important locations around these strategic choke points. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now this article on page number 15 is related to the strategically important South China Sea. And we note that South China Sea is very important for us from the prelims as well as mains examination perspective, because earlier a question was asked in the mains examination regarding the South China Sea and its geopolitical importance. So in this context, let us revise from a previous DNS video where we have already covered the importance of South China Sea and the geopolitics that is going on in this South China Sea, especially with regards to the increasing influence of China. Now we note that Indo-Pacific in general and South China Sea in particular has recently emerged as the geopolitical center of gravity. And the importance of South China Sea lies in the 1/3 of the world trade which transits through this sea. Further, it has rich oil and natural gas resources, and it accounts for about 10% of the world's fishery. However, the South China Sea has recently become a region of contestation among the coastal states which surround it. So as you can see in this map, the location of South China Sea and the countries which are surrounding this South China Sea. So mainly it is surrounded by China, Vietnam, Philippines, and various other countries. And accordingly, all these countries have been asserting their rights in the South China Sea's waters. However, it is the China which has asserted itself to be the most important power in the South China Sea. And it has claimed about 90% of the area of South China Sea with its conception of the 9-dash line. So in this map, you can see that China has asserted its rights on 90% of the South China Sea by conceptualizing this 9-dash line. So it covers mainly the 90% of the South China Sea region. Further, besides China, the United States of America has increased its military presence in the region under the concept of freedom of navigation operations. And it has done so in order to enforce the rule-based navigation of high seas, which is in accordance with the UN Convention on Law of Seas. And the principle of freedom of navigation under the UN clause provides for free movement of vessels in the high seas. So this has increased the military presence of United States of America in the South China Sea. Now, besides these military powers, Japan has also asserted its rights as a result of the disputed Senkaku and Diaoyu Islands. Further, the Philippines, Vietnam have emerged as regional players, and they have asserted their rights in the Spratly and the Paracel Islands. So in this map, you can see all these important locations which have been contested amongst various countries. So for example, the Pratas Island, the Paracel Island, the Spratly Islands, the Scarborough Shoal, and the Senkaku and the Diodo Islands. So all these locations are important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. Now, besides these contested islands between different countries, there are other players which include Malaysia, Indonesia, and Brunei. Now, what is the power game that is going on in the South China Sea? So, we see that Indo-Pacific has emerged as the center of gravity of geopolitics, and the United States of America has increased its presence in region both in terms of economics and the military presence. Further, China in the past decade has challenged the hegemony of US in the region by asserting its dominance through the Nine Dash Line, claiming the South China Sea to be its territorial waters. And China has also increased its military presence, which has resulted in confrontations with the littoral states like the Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, etc. Now, in this background, various concerns have been raised regarding the future of Indo-Pacific region because of the transformation of relationship that is going on between US and China because of the assertion of China in the South China Sea. Further, the Chinese assertion is visible in its ballistic missile tests which were conducted recently in the South China Sea. Now, due to the impact of COVID-19, US might reduce its presence in the South China Sea, which will further embolden China's intentions. So in this power game that is going on between South China Sea and the transformation in the power game which is being witnessed because of the COVID-19 pandemic in this sea, let us look at its relevance for India. Now, India and Southeast Asian countries, mainly which are part of the ASEAN, have always treated the South China Sea as a global common. And accordingly, the Chinese claim on the South China Sea as its territorial waters does not stand the scrutiny of the global commons. Further, it has acted as an important sea lane of communication historically, and India had its trading presence from Kedah in Malaysia to Guangzhou in China. Further, we note that India's trading relationship and partnership with the ASEAN countries has been increasing. So in this background, the security of South China Sea is very important for India's interests. And we note that nearly $200 billion of our trade passes through the South China Sea. And also, many Indian citizens study, work and invest in ASEAN countries as well as China, Japan and Republic of Korea. So in this background, it can be clearly said that we have stakes in the peace and security of this region in common with the others who reside in this region. And as such, the freedom of navigation as well as other normal activities with the friendly countries are essential for our economic well-being. Now, some of the points that we have discussed here have been highlighted by a former diplomat of India. And he further says that regional arrangements will become even more important for our economic recovery and rejuvenation due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And if India intends to think global and act local, India has to be part of the global supply chain in the world's leading growth region for the next half century. And for this, India needs to play a proactive role in regional arrangements like the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. And because the value of such agreements goes beyond the economic gains that they generate for India or the region. So this means that India needs to be a part of the various regional arrangements, and they can be very important for India in pursuing its interests in the region and especially in the South China Sea, which is a very important region for India from its security, both economic as well as territorial. Then this article on page number 8 is related to the electoral bonds. It has already been covered in the DNS of 9th March 2021. Do go through this video and try and understand the basics and the issues related to the electoral bonds. Then again, this article on page number 1 is related to the appointments of the judges in the Supreme Court and High Court and the collegium system. And various aspects of the appointment of the judges in the Supreme Court and the High Court has already been discussed in the DNS of 28 January 2021. Do go through this and try and understand it from the prelims examination perspective. With this, we conclude today's discussion, and this is the question for the day.